And now we are going to have a talk by Daniel Fischer, who is a producer at Fingersoft. And Fingersoft has just turned 10 years. So there is a lot of stories to share, a lot of things to hear from Daniel. And especially as a producer, I'm sure he has some quite interesting stuff to share with us. So I'm welcoming on stage Daniel.
Hello, 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 hello. Oi. Thank you, Natasha. Awesome to be here. This is, I think, like my second conference after the shit hit the fan, so to say, but really awesome to be here. I'm Daniel Fischer. I've been at the company now 5.5 years, so not the full 10, but that's only a limited few that can say that they have been at Fingersoft for 10 years. And I don't know if it updated on the website, at least for the browser version it did, but the talk is gonna be 10 years and 2 billion downloads. And we're gonna have a look in the rear view mirror, so to say, with car terms, but also a glimpse through the windshield. So what's gonna be next up. I don't know how many of you know Fingersoft. We are from Oulu. We're basically, or some might consider us an like anomaly in the sense that we are not from Helsinki, and we are actually a privately owned company still. So we have one majority shareholder, Tony, and also the employees, or some of the employees are part of it, part of the owner base. We have currently 100 plus employees and over 20 nationalities there, and also an office in Helsinki. It's a really like smaller offices. I would say like 90% of our employees are all in Oulu, but some of the maybe more senior staff are also located in Helsinki. Our top game is Hill Climb Racing, or the gaming IP, and they both have accumulated a combined of 2 billion downloads, and that we actually celebrated in the springtime this year. We were founded in 2012, and those adequate in math can calculate the 10 years from that, 22. About our games, a bit more. Hill Climb Racing 1, 2012, in October, so actually kind of around this area. And I didn't want to go too much into the revenue details, but both have accumulated over 100 million in revenue there. Hill Climb Racing 2 came then in 2016, and it has, well, accumulated less downloads, but is still hugely more profitable than the first one. Also hugely different games. I'm gonna go a bit down to the history, and we're now at 2011. And Tony, actually our founder, Tony Fingersoft, has had his own company name. The Fingersoft was his like private, what's the word? Santeri, where's the speaker notes? You're still working on it. Okay, well, nice. Well, Tony has had his own toiminimi, if somebody knows what that is in English. I don't recall the name now in Finnish, but anyways, Tony had that, and while he had that, he was doing camera applications. So these were the actual roots of Fingersoft. There you can see a couple of different camera applications, and the big hitter here was cartoon camera, which actually accumulated somewhere around 20 million downloads already in 2012, which was like a pretty big amount for these kinds of things. But these were all paid apps. Tony went on a trip to GDC, and there he got actually quite inspired by a talk about free-to-play games. And there he got the idea to make a game. Any guesses what the game name is? Any guesses? Yes, you are absolutely correct. Project Bubble Shooter, as you know. But maybe there was some sort of a pivot, because I don't know about you, but the bubble shooter games I know aren't looking like that. But that was actually the very first version of Hill Climb Racing. So you could say that Tony pivoted a bit from his original bubble shooter. But this was already getting somewhere. Tony had a failed company in the past where they did PS3 games, and that was basically a long haul of doing that game. It took forever. It got launched, but it actually didn't succeed. So he wanted to do things differently. He did it super quick and kind of dirty maybe also. The code is not as polished as it's, but here he used then outsourced art from his fiancée, Pia, drew actually the first drivable character, which is Bill over here. Wasn't called Bill at that point. A lot of iteration ongoing. He got a lot of quick feedback. And then after 3 excruciating months, Tony did extensive hours, which I do not recommend. But if you're the founder, then you might do it. But it only took Tony 3 months, but not speaking in usual working days to get it there. And there starts the era of hill climb racing. When hill climb racing launched, basically Tony was still operating from his own apartment, and it got pretty hectic at some point. It was bringing in the blue bars are the downloads, and the yellow bar is the revenue where it gone up. And then at some point it was like $10 a day, $100 a day, and then it accumulated just like a snowball effect. And remember those camera applications from before? They played actually a really big part in this, because Tony used those to cross-promote hill climb racing inside those camera apps, which already had the downloads. So we got the downloads also from there. And then hill climb racing has one advantage, that it actually runs basically on a potato. So we got a lot of downloads from developing markets also. And that kind of like spiked them up also in other rankings there. 6 months after launch, it's already 40 million installs and about 2 million in revenue over there. And at this point, as said, Tony was still operating from his own apartment, and he needed to set up the limited liability company like yesterday, because this was his like own personal company at that point. Entered the Kempele office, which was basically a family house, decorated as a game company office, and it had some necessities that the game company needs, but also maybe some unnecessary stuff there, like a huge jacuzzi and a sauna and everything. But maybe a Finnish gaming company needs those. It was pretty steady for hill climb racing. After that point, it kept growing. The team kept growing also. And 2 years after launch, it had hit already 250 million downloads and around 12 million in revenue. It's the first time it launched, it had actually like one vehicle. It wasn't this ambulance, it was a red hill climber that came out there. And if I remember correctly, 3 maps. And it has been developed now for 10 years, and there's like a plethora of vehicles. I couldn't even fit them here. But to this day, this game is still being developed, and there's a huge following and huge amount of downloads coming in every day. One of the newest additions is Tarantula. It's like a car and a spider combined. So there's like funky stuff going on. So if you want to try it, it's kind of like a oldie but goldie. The graphics might not be what the 3D candy graphics are nowadays, but it has its own charm and following. Then 2015, Hill Climb Racing 2 enters the scene. Actually, not at this point as Hill Climb Racing 2, but prototypes of something still resembling Hill Climb Racing 1. And at this point, the mantra was basically that, well, Tony did the first in 3 months. Now there's more people, so we should probably press this out also. It was H1 of 2015, and Christmas time has been always good for us and for the gaming industry in general. But the thinking was that we can bring this out in 2015 Christmas. Pretty big mistake in hindsight, and I'm also glad that the discussions were had that it didn't come out in 2015. Spoilers. But yeah, this variant or like spin-off was developed by a developer, Marko, where he added a ghost basically there, where you could then race against others. Also, teams were introduced, and there was a buzz at the office. Everybody liked that, liked the competition in the game. And the original idea was to have basically not a sequel, but a spin-off of Hill Climb Racing with added game modes that you could then choose of, and the original would still exist. And the fear of like cannibalizing the first one with the second one was like real, and many discussions were had. But later on, it was decided that we're gonna roll with it and make it actually two. We had also focus group tests with some variants. This might sound fancy in the context that there's a focus group test, but in reality, it was a school where we went and we asked the kids what they like the best about the graphics and everything. Nowadays, you can do probably wider range of all sorts of tests, but this was done at that point to actually make it clear that some other graphics than the Hill Climb Racing one. I think this was actually the winner of that competition. But at this point, it was already made that it is gonna be a sequel of Hill Climb Racing and named also Hill Climb Racing 2. We had some hurdles with the design on how to make it look and feel. This was a carousel iteration about how you choose the vehicle. It felt kinda okay. There was also the carousel used in like the level select and everything, but something felt a bit off by here. And then we scrapped all of these, and actually here you see kinda it has been added now since the years. There's a lot of new stuff also there, but this has one simple thing that came in. It's the race button. If somebody is here from Supercell, thank you, Clash Royale. There was the battle button, and that was like a big inspiration to have the single button, quick to race. All else is nonsense. You just want to race in a game, and Bill approves. We did a minor soft launch. I wouldn't say it could even be considered a soft launch anymore in modern day terms. It was in two countries for a really short time period. If I remember correctly, it was something like 2 months, and it got really good positioning there. We felt confident that it can be launched, but you could have taken longer, you could have iterated more, but that's how we rolled at that point. And the launch was a huge success, and it blew us all away, basically, how much downloads the game accumulated in the first month. And we had made calculations and everything, predictions on what the following or what the download rate would be, but it completely blew us away. And this graph might look fine and dandy, but in the first days, the servers actually crashed. And it was a 3-day time period where some people could play, but not all of the players could play. But luckily, it got fixed in those 3 days, because I don't even remember the other game's name, which was also pretty big, came out at the same time. They didn't recover from a server crash, and well, maybe that's why I don't remember the name. But it happens to also the big boys, so to say, or the medium boys. I don't know how you qualify Fingersoft, but yeah. So 6 months after launch, it had already 40 million installs and about 10 million revenue in there. So this had also a focus on the monetization part there, a bit more heavily than the first one. At this point, the Fingersoft Kempele office grew a bit small. There were already around 30 people at the company, so a family house isn't designed to maybe fit 30 developers. So enter our current office, a block basically in the city center of Oulu. We bought it from an architecture department of the University of Oulu and added some of the gaming company necessities like the sauna for there. Next up, I'm gonna speed up a little, so we're gonna go faster through the history of Hill Climb Racing 2. It went GaaS, so game as a service. So it launched in 2016. We added tuning parts or tune parts to the cars, to the mix. Then there was the special events. We hit 1 billion downloads at that point, 2018. Then the teams. Then this was Trophy Road was added, and single player revamp. We wanted to make it a bit more adventure by also calling it adventure, not just single player. And then 21 Climb Canyon leagues. And this is also a bit more focused on the multiplayer, or not bit more, but heavily focused on the multiplayer aspect of the game side. Hill Climb Racing 1 being a more relaxed single player game. Now as a refresher, when I show you a small video about Hill Climb Racing 2's GaaS. That was that. Quick glimpse into the monetization of Hill Climb Racing. So basically, we have in-app purchases there. We use segmenting there, so you get the segmented offers also here. VIP subscriptions where you can then up your game basically. But we also do ad monetization in our games, and if I remember correctly, in Hill Climb Racing 2, the split is something like 60 in-app purchases, 40 ads. So ads bring in a substantial part of the revenue also. So we have the basic rewarded videos, but also the interstitial ads there. Is this still? Yes. All right. Then a glimpse into the future, or through the windshield. So looking forward, what's gonna be next? What could that be? Is it a familiar vehicle, but with a 3 on top of it? So yes, it is in the plans and in the makings. And I wanted to kind of also say a few words. Why a sequel? We feel that we have many ideas and things that we want to bring to Hill Climb Racing, but due to some like technical or design limitations, it might not be completely feasible to bring them into Hill Climb Racing 2. So it sometimes makes better to do a sequel after that. And as said, with the cannibalization, we think there's a fan base following for each of the hill climbs, and then they will find their way either into the new one or also stick with the old one, because they have their own flavors always there. We wanted to also with the new idea stuff, we wanted to go 3D this time with Hill Climb Racing, and also kind of being able to dabble somewhat with the core mechanics of the game. The community has been asking for it. We have a pretty big Discord. I think it was somewhere around 80,000 people, and it's like one of the most talked about topics is Hill Climb Racing 3 and some speculations around it. And Hill Climb Racing 3 is actually searched more on the stores than 1 and 2. So there's some sort of a demand also for that. And with the in-app purchases and live op stuff, I feel we have learned a lot in the past with the previous games. Now we can focus from the get-go with those things also, to also monetize better with the game. Where is it? Thank you.